Sorry, so we're just gonna start brainstorming everything with ChatGPT, right? We're gonna try to accelerate the things that we're looking for, what we're trying to find, and we're gonna look at both of these different buckets using the help of AI, right? So you have to keep in mind the better your system prompt is when you're brainstorming with AI, the better results you're gonna get from it. A lot of people in AI, some people don't really like using it, okay? And the reason why is because some people love it, some people hate it, but the people that hate it versus the people that love it usually know how to talk to it versus not knowing how to talk to it. That's where the clear separation between people is. And so they basically know how to instruct it better. The better instructions you go with AI, the better output it's gonna spit back out to you. And there's actually a science to the system prompt, right? You can go super, super deep into it. There's a format on how you should be instructing AI. But you know what I mean, we're not gonna have to think about that format every single time we use AI. So what are we gonna do, right? Instead, here's what I do. And by the way, when I say the word system prompt, what that means is basically instructions that you tell the AI. So it tells it what it is, what it does, and how it's supposed to do it. It's basically just what to type to the AI so that way it knows what it needs to do. And so here's what I do. Instead of me having to create those instructions from scratch, I literally prompt another AI to create those set of instructions for me. So I actually use a specific system prompt generator. All I do is I copy it. I'm gonna paste it into ChatGPT. You're literally gonna see me do it right now. I'm gonna remove this and I'm gonna paste that system prompt that helps me create the other system prompts. And I'm gonna give you this too, so that way if you wanted to create something in the future, you can use it and just kind of get one very, very quickly. All right, so boom, I just pasted it, right? Here's that system prompt. And by the way, I use this specific system prompt generator. All I do is I copy it, I throw it into ChatGPT, and I paste it. It says something like, "You are an expert AI system prompt engineer. Your job is to create extremely high quality system prompts that are going to be used by other AI systems to perform their task with maximum accuracy, depth, and professionalism." And you guys can see there is so many different in-depth instructions and details on how that system prompt should be written. Again, I want a system prompt for an AI that I want to use, but I don't want to have to go through the science of creating the system prompt. So I'm literally going to use a system prompt to create the system prompt. And here's what that is, okay? Now, so once I use this, right, we're adding all these instructions right here, and we're letting AI do that for us. As soon as I send it, right, it's going to say something like, "Okay, tell me the use case for this," right? What do you want a system prompt for? So what are we going to do at this point is we have to give it a big context dump of pretty much everything that we're trying to do. So we just threw the system prompt right here. It says, "Okay, when you tell me the use case, I'm going to produce a standalone production grade system prompt written entirely in clear paragraph instructions." Now what we do is we literally throw in a context dump of everything we just talked about. Right? So boom, here's what that context dump looks like. I just told it I'm doing market research and I'm trying to find the best niche in the industry I can target for selling voice AI systems. It doesn't have to be voice AI systems. It could just be AI systems. But you know what? Let's do voice.
If you were to put automation system in there, could it be an automation system as well?
Yes, it does not have to be voice at all. If you're talking about a specific automation system or general automation system, you want to go more into details about what you're trying to accomplish. Because what that's going to do is when you say, "Okay, I want my automation system to solve blank and also do blank, and I want them to feel blank after buying it," and just kind of giving it all these different little meta details about what you expect your output to be, then it's going to go ahead and try to do that research for you without you having to kind of spin your brain about all these different things. But let's just go ahead and use this like as a voice AI system, right? We're gonna say, "Hey, we're gonna be selling a voice AI system. I want to target brick and mortar businesses, and ultimately, I want the AI to be an expert strategic consultant on how to best find who I need to target by asking me questions." Here, what we're doing is we're saying, "Okay, I don't want you to just blurt out answers. I want you to go back and forth with me, ask me questions about what these things are, so that way I can actually give you the proper answers you need for you to craft what you needed to do." I wanted to do real-time market research. So this is telling it I wanted to do online search and take strategic planned out approach for choosing who needs voice AI services the most by targeting pain point areas of great streamlining and optimization and areas where we can maximize our ROI. I'm literally just context dumping it about the things that I care about. I want this AI to be super thorough, talk back and forth with me, not just blurred out answers. I'm going to send this forward, and the response that we should get should be a full comprehensive system prompt that can help us create what we're trying to get to. So look at this right here. You're a voice AI market research and niche selection strategist. Your core objective is to help the user choose the best brick and mortar. It's literally every single thing. But here's the deal. It's not just telling it what it needs to do. It's telling it how to structure how it needs what it needs to do. It's telling it how to treat brick and mortar, how to look at constraints, how to look at all these different factors that we didn't even think about. I mean, look at this. This is an entire page and it's still writing.
Still going.
But
Still going.
this kind of depth from a system prompt is exactly what you need, because this is going to
Mhm.
help us literally put our brainstorming on steroids. So what I'm going to do right now is I just copied it. I don't even need to know the details for the rest of it. I'm going to take the entire thing. I'm going to open up a brand new page this time. Okay. I'm going to open up a brand new chat and then I'm going to paste it. And look at this.
Yeah,
It's going to
I have a
start.
quick question. So for somebody who doesn't know how to do this, how would they be able to, obviously you have the prompts already written out. How would somebody come up with these prompts on their own?
So
If they were just trying to plug in the same prompts, how would they be able to do that?
So the very first prompt, the one that creates system prompts that we use to even get this in the first place, you're not gonna have to come up with that at all. I'm literally just gonna give it out. You can take word for word the prompt that I use, which by the way I've been using for about a year and a half now, and it
Mhm.
works amazing. That one you don't have to create. If you wanted to if you wanted to take mine as a base and kind of put it on steroids and make it better, you can do that, right? I'm just gonna flat out give that to the world. The only thing you do have to create is this. This is the context dump that I gave it. Okay. And this is, by the way, literally, I just tried to tell it a goal that I have. What is my goal, right? I want something that helps me brainstorm and pick out a specific niche in the market. So, what am I going to do? I'm just going to brain dump all the details in my head of what I want my expert strategist AI to want to do. And I just told it, hey, I want to focus on ROI. I want to focus on streamlining, optimizing brick and mortar, and I want it to be voice AI. And I need it to ask me questions. This is something you are going to have to come up with. And you don't even have to come up with it by yourself. You can still go back to AI and be like, hey, help me come up with a prompt that I can feed into another AI to help me generate a system prompt. But I want to use that prompt to basically give it a context dump. And then the AI is going to ask you, okay, what are you trying to do? And then you give that AI a context dump, and then it gives you a professional one. So you can see how you can, the idea that I'm trying to showcase here is you
Yeah.
use AI in a way where your primary use case, the system prompt for it is not written by you. Instead, what you do is you open up a brand new AI instance. You use a system prompt that helps you create the system prompt for the next one, and then you just give it a flat out this dump of everything you want and go back and forth with it. Your final goal would be something like this. Ideally, when you throw this in there, right? So now look at this. It's gonna say perfect. I'm gonna run this like a real niche selection engagement. Right now we're in phase one, constraint problem. We don't just pick a niche, we choose a niche first. You know what I mean? It goes back and forth with you. This is essentially how we're gonna power train the brainstorming. So we're just literally gonna read this right now, so we're doing it live and see what it wants from us. So it says, okay, right now we're in phase one, constrain the problem, so we don't pick a niche, we choose a niche that fits your sales reality, your product reality, and your delivery capacity. Once you answer the question below, I'll turn that into a simple scoring model. We'll generate a small set of candidate need. Okay, so what's the first question? Okay, so first, where are you selling and how local do you want it to be? Are you doing St. Louis? Are you doing multi-state, nationwide? This matters because some niches. Okay. What do you want to do, Miles? This is gonna be on you. I'm gonna ask you these questions.
Farmington, New Mexico. I'm sorry, I
Mexico.
got lost in like reading all of this.
No, no, no. We're just gonna do it one part at a time. So we'll go through the first part, and then we'll answer that, and then we'll jump to the next part. So this is we're basically handing it the ammo it needs to go out and actually do that research. It's just because I asked it to go back and forth with us, it's not gonna spit out a response. Normally, it would have spit out a response, but now it's like, okay, well, I need you to answer all these different details before I actually go out to the market and start pulling different
Okay.
things.
So first, where are you selling and how local do you want to be? Let's do a 200, yeah, 300 mile radius. Yeah, that's a good idea. Higher monthlies. That way, if we're gonna get them on it, we're getting them on a retainer, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it just makes more sense to go for a more higher volume company, you know? I think the majority of people would realistically be looking to make a close in 7 to 14 days. So let's do a 7 to 14 day close. I want to stay in,
Is
okay,
purely
yeah. Yeah, fifth. Let's do I almost want to do service based.
medical dental. So we're gonna avoid medical and dental, to be honest, because when you're building not just a voice, but like literally any AI system, when you're dealing with something called PII, which is personal identifiable information, that's like people's personal health records, social security numbers, any kind of thing that's considered sensitive, you're gonna be you have to fall in line with a lot of different kinds of compliances. It's a bigger headache to deal with. So we're just gonna say we wanna target businesses.
And
Let me
sixth,
just
what is your
let's just proof check this. system prompt that we're actually using here?
Because our main goal is just to take it from building the system to signing that first client. So I guess
I was gonna
three.
say it doesn't really matter, to be honest. It's not really like that question is at this point in time at least, it's not really that relevant.
Yeah.
3 clients per month, both owner, operator, and manager led. So what is it? What this is saying is, do you want okay, like, businesses that I mean, they don't have a huge hierarchy in terms of decision making, right? You have an owner who's operating the business. With that, you get faster decisions. You have like more of an emotional pain because it's owner operated, and this guy's like the owner's involved in a lot of different things. Chaotic ops means operations, right? You have more of a chaotic operation, or versus manager led, right? Now this is more of a hierarchical business, right? You have more processes, longer cycle, meaning the decision approval has to go through more hoops, right? Maybe the manager has to approve, he has to send it forward to somebody else's desk, and that somebody has to send it to the CTO's desk. That's what this means. Sometimes higher budget, that is true. Businesses that have this hierarchical manager led structure, what I mean, they make more money because they have to be more organized. There's more employees into that. Or do you want single location or multi location? We want it really
Single
doesn't matter,
location.
single or multi location.
Single
I
location.
would say multi is better, but in the beginning we're just kind of throwing out a net, right? We don't really care if
Okay.
it's multi or single, so I don't think this really is too relevant. That's what this question is basically saying right here. Both and major led, single and multi is both. Do you want as a buyer persona? Do you prefer owner operator? Okay, we just all right. So now it should be okay. So now we see it's researching, it's gathering more information. We're just gonna let it research. We're gonna let it do its thing, and then we're gonna look at the output and see what it came up with. Okay, so it's saying for us, it's almost never the biggest market, right? We're not caring about market size. It says the niche where one missed call is an obvious revenue leak is what we need to focus on. So somebody who misses a phone call misses money. The workflow can be standardized across many local businesses. So when you build something, you can go ahead and like actually reach out to different kinds of businesses, but they're all gonna have the same kind of problem. And then the buyer feels pain weekly, not yearly. So this needs to be a constant headache in their voice, constant headache in their business, and you can demo value in minutes. Okay, implementation doesn't require risky compliance. And region like farmers and four corners, you also want niches that naturally spike calls. So you got weather, emergency, seasonal demand, where people choose the first business that answers. Before we pick finalists, I did a quick reality check on what's likely dense in the area. Farmington is widely described as a regional hub for services like retail, healthcare, the businesses you call service. So service businesses that can catch the spillover demand. So we got the service based that deal with homes, vehicles, families, properties, and niche scores highest when the calls are both frequent and critical. Makes sense. If you don't answer now, the call the next listing. Home service is a classic example because a lot of revenue is captured on the phone. So what is defined as home services? We're gonna dive into that here in a second. Meaningful portion of calls happen outside of business hours, especially emergencies. Okay, so home services, services that are offered to people that affect their home, where a portion or meaningful portion of the calls happen outside of their business hours, and they have emergencies. Home service companies spend money to generate calls, so they're often running Google ads, local services, SEO. So this is how they're trying to get leads. So unanswered calls are literally wasted marketing spend. Okay, that's another.
That's a big pain point because businesses are so concerned about their ROI already.
So this combination creates fast ROI, which makes 7 to 14 day closes more realistic. So because I think like because we told it 7 to 14 day closes, it's focusing more on the critical aspect of things. If we didn't even include this, if we just said, you know what, it doesn't matter, we're not trying to close in 7 to 14 days, I think this would open up the net to some other kind of businesses that are not really home service based businesses. um, but this is like literally choosing this because of the justification we gave it about, okay, we want right now, we want critical, and we want something that we can essentially close 3 a month. So the candidate wants to pressure test you is centered on call heavy. So again, this was choosing call heavy, low compliance, appointment, and dispatch. Okay, so now it's pointing us to HVAC, plumbing, electrical, garage door restorations in your radius. There are Plenty of HVAC plumbing businesses actively marketing phone first and offering same day for emergency service. It was exactly where the missed calls hurt. You have auto services, so cars, auto repair, tire shops, and towing. Yeah, these people are often living on the phone and they need to be available for questions that are repetitive. There's a strong needed today dynamic. It's getting this needed today dynamic from the 7 to 14 day. Vet and pet services urgent. So a lot of calls are scheduling, FAQs, hospitality. Notice what I'm deliberately not prioritizing yet. Anything heavily regulated. So medical billing, deep healthcare. Cool. I want to narrow the next highest leverage question. Answer these and I'll immediately come back with a ranked shortlist of 3 niches, plus the exact workflows we prioritize first for each one. First question. When you say higher monthly, what range are you imagining as your standard package in this market? I would say this is fairly reasonable. So, are you willing to sell 24/7 coverage as the anchor or the outcome? So, basically, you're saying, okay, your people leave at 4 p.m. This voice system would kick off from 4 p.m. until the next time you guys there's basically offering 24/7 coverage. Yes, since they're missing calls and that's pretty important for them, then yes. As the anchor, do you want to keep it business hours overflow plus 24/7 coverage as an option? It could be molded to any. What is the simplest measurable win you want to sell? Let's think about that, right? What is the one outcome we want somebody to experience if they were to buy this?
A
Not missing
saved
calls,
job.
right? So that's number one, probably not missing calls. And then the calls that are answered are funneled into their existing CRM. So I'm assuming all these different businesses are keeping track of their customer base through a CRM. So number one would be not missing calls. Two, the calls that are picked up get funneled into the CRM. And then three, I would say follow-ups and
Follow up the
escalations.
big thing.
Not
Yeah.
missing calls. Directing calls into CRM and follow-ups slash notifications. So, okay, what do you want to start targeting businesses that already run ads so that they feel wasted calls are immediate pain points, or you find target businesses that rely on organic? Let's target
Mm,
people.
both, really,
Both.
because if we're
Okay.
targeting either one, that's just another, it's a question, you know? Because there's going to be a sales process behind this. So when you ask them, okay, so are you guys running ads? I see. Are those ads converting well? Yes, we're super busy. Okay, how's your phone? Very, very busy. And then that's just kind of when you get an understanding of where they're processing at with their business, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you wouldn't want to just focus on people that are just running ads. You're cutting yourself short if you do that. We're gonna focus
Yeah.
on both because in both situations, calls are coming in regardless, and both
Mhm.
people, whether they run ads or don't run ads, are experiencing the exact same issue if nobody's picking up that phone. So yeah, that would be both. What's your comfort level with scheduling, dispatching? Are you starting with capture detail plus SMS plus and not going to be at first? Do you want to do calendar from day one? We can do capture detail, SMS, call transfer, or anything needed. Right now, primarily the question is who needs voice AI? Not much of what they need it to do. We're trying to focus on researching the who and the why, not much of the what. So who needs it and why. We can talk about what it should do. Listen at there and see what happens. Let me restate your operating box in my own words because this is where most people mess up. You want to sell 1,000 to 1,500 monthly service, close in 17, 14 days, and onboard 3 a month. Stay low compliance. Okay, cool. I mean, rules out a huge number of AI sounding industries and leaves us with a very specific profile of business. Business that needs voice AI are the most are the ones that love AI. They're the ones whose phones already their revenue engine, where answering speed matters, and where the owner personally felt the pain of we're busy, we missed calls, and I don't know how much money that cost me. Before I name niches, here's the lens I'm using to narrow them in plain English. So this is why it chose what it chose. A strong niche for you must have calls that are time sensitive, okay? Not informational. The caller can wait. An email voice AI is a nice to have. The caller hangs up and calls the next listing. Voice AI is a revenue protector. This is a beautiful point right here because you could be wasting all of your time saying, okay, it would be super nice for these businesses if they can have this. And the thing that you're talking about is just literally a cherry on top of what's already working for them. It's not a need, it's a want, right? So identifying the thing as a need or a want is huge. This is basically telling you don't focus on nice to haves, focus on needs. And needs are often tied to pain points, right? Things that are people are struggling with. The business must already accept that the phone is imperfectly handled today. Either it rings unanswered, goes to voicemail, or ties up staff who could be doing other billable work. If the owner thinks we already answer every call perfectly, your sales cycle explodes. Third, the workflow behind the call must be repetitive enough that you can standardize that system across many businesses in your region. That's also a really, really good point right here. If you're building something that you want to sell to multiple different places, you have to make sure that the amount of variation that's happening between these different places is not vary greatly. They can't be different. The reason why is because the more it varies, the more customization you have to throw into it, the more you're rebuilding on the wheel, right? You want as
Mhm.
close of a static system. When I say static, I mean something that you can build that doesn't change much, or if it does change, it's not as crazy of a change as something that's infrastructure based, right? It's You're not changing the structure of the system, but what you would be changing is like different parts of it. Say for example, the CRM that people use. You build some system and it works with CRM A, but you have business B uses CRM B. Well, you would go into your system, just swap out only the CRM, because this AI automation is modular, right? You have different modules that you connect into. You can swap out different parts of your system and connect other parts into it. So that's what you're wanting to build something that's modular. So that way you can take this base, walk into business A, figure out what business applications they're using, and then swap things out. You're not rebuilding the entire infrastructure. That's what this point here is talking about. Based on your constraints, there are three core niche families. So let's talk about them, right? The first one is home services with urgent or same day demand. We just talked about that. HVAC, plumbing, electrical, water damage. The why is because if someone calls at 7 p.m., their AC is out or their pipe is leaking, nobody answers. They don't wait. They just call the next Google result.
Next.
Very real, right? Very real.
Yep.
If nobody's there and something's happening right now, I need somebody to come in right now. I have to jump into the next. This is the perfect situation where that 24/7 support of voice AI would come into play. Again, doesn't need to be smart here, just needs to answer, capture the problem, get that information, and then triage urgency. Triage just means like handle it and know where to route it and what information to send. 1,000 to 1,500 a month. The ROI here is extremely easy. One or two saved jobs covers this 1,500 per month. User feels this pain weekly because they're getting calls weekly. The decision maker is often the owner or a general manager. The objections are predictable and manageable. Well, let's screw up. What if it doesn't understand? Okay, we'll worry about that later. And you can mitigate them with escalation rules. The second one is auto and mobility services, where downtime costs money. So what does that mean? Auto repair shops, tire shops, and towing companies. Why is that? Let's see. These businesses get hammered with repetitive calls saying, okay, are you open? Can you take me today? Do you know this? How much is why? Where are you located? Can I drop it off? The pain here is not just missed calls, interruptions. Services owners are constantly pulled away from work. So here's acting as a call shield. Okay, so the second one is auto. The third one is, what's the third one? High intent local service with emotional or logistical urgency. What does that mean? Urgent care vets, emergency pet services, boarding/grooming operations with high call volume, childcare or senior care intake. Like, yeah, I don't know if we're gonna even touch this right here, to be honest. And the reason why is not because it doesn't apply much, but like we have two very, very strong candidates right here. Um,
Yeah.
and I think there's probably a little bit more regulation with these.
Yeah. Literally. Like any service-based level would be absolutely perfect, you
Yeah.
know?
So we'll put these aside, right? We'll say auto and mobility service. So I'm just gonna literally copy this. All right. So we got service based and we have auto and mobility. Now, what do we have to do inside of these two? Now that we pulled both of them, we gotta figure out exactly what is happening in these. Let's say home services, businesses, and what's happening in these auto and mobility services. Assume I don't work in this, right? I don't know the ins and day outs of HVAC. I don't know the day in day out of the auto mobility services. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna conduct research on each of these individually and dive into their literal day-to-day process. That's my main point right now. When I'm speaking to somebody who's in that business, I want to put myself in a position where everything I'm saying sounds like I'm literally in their shoes I fully understand why this thing hurts them. I'm speaking their language. Right now, I'm trying to learn their language. I don't know their terminology. I don't know their terminology. I don't know their language. I don't know their processes. So I want to just basically familiarize myself a little bit more with both of them just to see, okay, which one can I easily get into and be able to just kind of pick up on, okay, this is pretty easy. I understand why they're doing this. I understand how they're doing this. I understand how this thing they're doing is impacting that business. This is what I'm trying to do right now. So I'm literally gonna take this right now. Let's assume we. So I'm just gonna go back. I'm gonna say let's assume we want to dive deeper into home-based services, right? This is an auto services.
I think auto services is a great idea
Why do you say that?
because I just know all of the people in this town aren't using AI for their companies. And if I can just get on a call with these people and show them how it can benefit their business, they'd probably be open to trying it out.
But what's backing that claim up that you're saying right now? Like you're just saying I feel like. What's making you feel that way?
I know the type of individual that would run an auto body shop. Like I had a conversation with this dude one time, and it just seems like I would be able to have a one-on-one conversation with a auto service owner. Does that make sense?
Why you're saying that from experience? I'm assuming you feel like you can connect with them at a better level than the other
Yes.
guys.
Yes, 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 yes.
Okay, you think you can connect with them better. Why? What makes them different from the HVAC people?
I feel like with a lot of HVAC people, we're going to be running into receptionists and they get calls regarding the exact same thing. Does that make sense?
Oh, but we're not gonna go to the receptionist. We're actually
We're
when
going
we build this right now, we're gonna be going directly to the owners. But I mean, I'm not saying like you're right or wrong. I'm literally just trying to understand your justification. Like you're more comfortable with auto services because
I low key just feel like I would be able to have a better conversation with an auto service owner more than HVAC. Do you know what I mean? Because I used to do a bunch of cold calls and like I feel like with every single cold call that I was making for like an HVAC or a plumbing company, I was either getting in contact with a grumpy receptionist or a business owner, and I was like the seventh cold call that he had received that day. But like with an auto service, I have cold called some auto services in the past, and they were a little bit more open to listening to what I had to say. Does that make sense?
it does
Like they're
make
a little bit
sense.
more open to whatever is presented in front of them.
But at the same time, also that is a subjective experience, right? It's like
Mm,
your experience with this, because I can pull somebody else who's also done cold calling, who's also done sales, and they could say the opposite of you, and their justification would be different, and they would say, I feel like I can have a better conversation with somebody who's in HVAC and not auto, because auto people, every time I talked to an auto person, they were pissed off because their day was, too much work. Both of these they're not really grounded claims. I mean, we want to take as much of a data driven, as much of a logical decision as possible, literally taking every sort of experience that we have out of this. So actually, we're going to do both of them because now we're at a stage where like technology allows us to do that without spending a huge amount of time. We can spin up two different campaigns. We can spin up two different voice systems at the same time. We can hit both of these and track the metrics and make a decision from there without having to literally spend double or triple the amount of time it would take us to do one of them. Because the overhead to hitting that line is so low with all the technology that's happening right now. That's the whole idea of the AI and automation is we want to try to shrink the amount of time we have to put into a system that helps us get the value back. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna do both of them. And by the way, the reason why also this I think is gonna work for a lot of people is because not everybody has sort of that previous experience where they did the cold calling and they already have a predefined feeling about auto versus HVAC versus what I mean. You're going off of that based off of experience, which is great. But let's just talk about somebody who's never called either of them. Like,
mm,
how do they
mm.
get to decide? Well, we're literally gonna take the same approach. We're gonna do the same exact thing for both of them and see which one responds to us better. And then from there, we're gonna just put all our eggs on that one basket and focus on just that one. So we're gonna dive deeper into each one and try to like put ourselves into their mind frame to understand what processes happen there, where voice AI fits, why it fits. Just trying to make sense of their world. So when we sit there and talk to them, we can talk from that same language that they kind of understand. I know HVAC is probably going to be some terminology that we need to know. But that's basically what I'm doing right here. I'm just gonna try to brainstorm one at a time and just take
Mhm.
notes. Does that make sense though?
Mhm. Mhm.
You mean you see why I'm taking this approach though, instead of just saying like,
Yeah,
okay, I
100%.
feel
Yeah.
more comfortable with auto.
You have to think about it. Yeah, you have to think about it from somebody else's standpoint.
Let's
I
assume
get you.
we want to dive deeper into home base and service and auto services only now. So I'm just brainstorming and continue brainstorming with AI. And by the way, what I'm doing is giving it a full context brain dump of all the thoughts that are in my head. I want to fully deep dive and understand each of them in a way that allows me to be comfortable and speak same language when we talk to them about selling our service. Again, no magic here, literally just brain dumping about selling our service. I want to understand mainly their processes, day-to-day operation, workflows, impact, and criticality. Is that even a word? So I'm saying, okay, I want to understand their processes, their day-to-day operation, their workflows, impact, and criticality of those processes on the business and why they do what they do. Let's start with, which one do you want to start with, Miles?
HVAC.
HVAC slash. Let's start with home service. What do we need to do? I'm just gonna end it with an open-ended question. Let's see what it says. All right, before you sell into home services, you need to think like a home service operator, not a vendor. I'm gonna do three different things. First, I'll frame how home service businesses actually work at a system level, so you understand the logic behind your day-to-day decisions. I'm gonna walk through a realistic day in the life workflow, focusing where call fits and why they're critical. And then we're going to explain how this sets you up to sell voice AI without talking about AI. This, by the way, this is like us loading our ammunition before we jump into those calls. Because if you jump into those calls and you know every detail in the world about your product and service, and you're just saying, hey, I can give you this, I can plug it in. And you know what I mean? You can't get into the depth, the nitty gritties of maybe using the correct terminology that only applies to HVAC, right? Using the lingo that exists in their world. That's really what's going to sell off a lot of these different conversations when you speak to somebody, because now you're, you know, the owner, whoever's the decision makers in front of you, and they get an idea that you've done your homework, you've done your research, which is actually what we're doing here. We're basically doing our homework into both of these, so that way we, you know, what I mean, we're walking a little bit with more confidence when we do these kind of talks. Most home services, HVAC, plumbing, electrical, garage door restoration are not built around technology. They're built around time, truck, and trust. So time applies to us, trucks, and okay, so this makes a lot of sense. The entire business model is constrained by how many jobs they can physically complete in a day. So we have a constraint here. How many jobs somebody can fit in a day with how many technicians. So they're limited by jobs. I'm literally gonna write this down. By the way, I don't know if you guys can see. I have like a freaking notebook right here. I'm just gonna make some quick note. Actually, before I write, actually, I'm not gonna do that. Let's just do that here. So I'm just gonna write these little points right here. I'm gonna say, okay, we so far we have constraints. This is tiny, probably. So constraints. One is how many jobs per day. How many technicians? So second constraint. So two, we're gonna say number of technicians, and three is trucks. We don't really need to actually take note of how many trucks.
Yeah, how many trucks? I don't. Yeah.
Every decision they make is about protecting that capacity and keeping it full with the right jobs. This is another point right here, keeping it full with the right jobs. So this tells me that these technicians are getting jobs of different criticalities, meaning some job might be bigger, worth more, takes more time, versus something that is much more simpler. Now you got to think about the POV of a technician. The time it takes for them to look at their schedule, look at that job or that work order, get into the truck, load up all their equipment, drive to the location. That is out of scope for the actual job type, if that makes sense. The time it takes for them to do that is that's not going to change. So they need to make sure that that constant time that has to happen needs to be applied to the more important jobs first. So that way they're not wasting that time, because it's going to get burned regardless. Now you don't want to, you know, imagine you have 6 tasks. 3 of them are low priority and 3 of them are super important. But you don't have anything in place that tells you, okay, hey, your next task is going to be an important one versus your next one is going to be lower priority. You want something to kind of do that for you. That's where we're
Yeah.
going to say, okay, hey, voice AI is going to be able to kind of help you identify higher jobs versus lower jobs. So that way you can take this constant time that doesn't change and apply it to where it needs to be in the business. Because, I mean, this is another note right here. So we're just going to say time allocation. Literally just throwing notes here. But wait, let me see if that's covered. That's here. I'll put it here. All right. So we have the constraints, how many jobs, and the number of technicians. And we have something important, which is the types of jobs that techs go to during the day. It affects their time allocation. And let's see. Revenue doesn't come from leads. Revenue comes from book jobs that actually happen. So those jobs almost always start with a phone call. It's not customer support, it's a front door of revenue. They also live in a constant tension between two competing priorities: answer the phone quickly and doing the actual work that makes money. So now we have two priorities. So constraints, importance, I'm gonna say priorities. We have constraints, and importance and priorities. So what does their day-to-day workflow look like? Let's walk through a normal day because this is where your credibility is gonna come from, understanding this, right? We're gonna be leaning on this, saying, hey, we know you guys do this. This is how you guys operate. So day usually starts early. Dispatch, the owner or front office person is looking at the day's schedule. Trucks are already assigned. Techs are on the road. At this point, the schedule is fragile, right? So one emergency job, one cancellation, or one late technician can throw off the entire day. This tells me that they basically have bookings ahead of time because they're
Yeah,
jumping
they're
in.
tight. They're tight on schedule.
They're tight on schedule. They're jumping in the morning and they're looking at that schedule and they're saying, okay, here's what needs to happen today. Meanwhile, the phone starts to ring. Some calls are high value and urgent, aka my AC stopped working, basement is flooding, whatever. These callers want help right now. If they don't get a human or fast response, they're going to say nobody's available. Other calls are medium value, but still important, saying, hey, when can you come out? Do you service my area? Let's see. So there's different kinds of calls right here that I'm going to take note of. So now what I'm doing, what I'm saying is, okay, I have different kinds of calls that happen. Some of them are, hey, I need this right now. This is something that we need to take care of, which is more of like an emergency. We're just going to call it emergency. The second kind is inquisitive, right? Hey, when's your availability? Do you come to this area? Your cost. Oftentimes, these are written somewhere, right? You don't have to ask somebody for these. You have to ask somebody for this one actually, because you know what I mean. You have to look at the schedule. But whether they service a specific area, that's probably some information you can get online. What's the cost range? If there is some sort of quotation tool that they use, that's probably what this is involving. But we're just gonna leave this out for now because this is a little, we don't know too much about this yet. So revenue opportunities, not just emergencies. And then there's low value. So what are those? Are you open? So this usually needs somebody to have accessibility to a schedule. What are the hours? Schedule. Do you work on X brand? The type of, I guess, equipment that the technician will work with. So this has nothing to do with schedule. This could be stored somewhere. These eat time, but don't directly generate revenue. Okay, so I see two different things, right? There's schedule-based questions, and then there is inquisitive questions that are just information that's out in the wild, and then there's emergency. So that's the three different call types. So call types, you have one, inquisitive. So call types: one, inquisitive, is info out in the open. They could probably get this without having to talk to somebody. Two, you have schedule based, someone with access to schedule. And three, you have emergencies, needs to be done ASAP. Come back here. So businesses cannot tell which type of call it is until it's answered. That's why missed calls are so dangerous. They're not just missing a call, they're potentially missing a same day job that could have filled a truck. So this tells me that right here between these, there's some sort of confusion, and this confusion affects the schedule. So clearing this confusion is one of the problems that they have. So we're just gonna say clearing confusion. By the way, all I'm doing right now is super brain dumping. That's all I'm doing. I don't care if it looks pretty. I don't care if it looks structured. I'm just super brain dumping. We can figure this out later. All types equals direct impact to schedule and job quality, right? Because you have confusion between call types. The type of the call impacts the call quality. So you have a direct impact on the day's schedule by clearing confusion between these call types.
Why would it be quality? Wouldn't it be quantity?
Not
Because
necessarily.
it,
So think about it, right? if I am getting 10 calls, and those 10 calls, that quantity is not changing more or less. It's not adding or removing things on my schedule unless I can filter between those 10 calls. Which, if I'm filtering between those 10 calls, I know that three of those calls are important, two of those calls are not important, and five of them are just inquisitive. The inquisitive calls, I mean, they're not really jobs. And then you have the two calls that are schedule based. So 10 calls, right? And we'll say, just for easy numbers, three are emergency, three are inquisitive, and four are, right? So uh, this number is going to be the same regardless. But let's say somebody is picking up the phone for these three. Let's say they're on the phone and they're on the phone with something that is inquisitive. So they're spending 5 minutes on some information that could be found somewhere online. Another call comes in, and this call is E. It's an emergency, but they missed that call. Therefore, this call goes. So, because now this E went, their overall schedule, like let's just say this is the schedule, they have one more slot and another call comes in, and maybe it's not really an emergency, but it's just a scheduling thing. So let's just say they call and they're asking about a schedule, and they end up on a schedule that's like the next morning. This spot is still empty, meaning the quality of all of the day's jobs was impacted by the missing job, which basically left because nobody picked up because they were on an inquisitive call. So that's how I was thinking about it. You're basically looking at the quality of jobs that are happening on the day based on distinguishing the kind of call that comes in and making sure that the higher priority ones are categorized. Does that make sense or no? How are you thinking about it?
It makes sense.
Like what's the direct impact of missing a call that was not categorized because you just decided to pick any call that came in and you stuck on the phone on an inquisitive call, but another call came in, you couldn't pick it up, and it was a higher
And it
criticality,
was a
meaning
more important call,
meaning a
inquiring
job that could have
possibly about a
landed on
job.
here, but it did
Okay,
not land on
that
here.
makes more
Therefore, the
sense.
quality of the day is down. Whereas we're look at a different scenario where this call did not, or I mean, the voice AI took both calls at the same time. We'll say, both of these were talking, and it found this is, this is an E, and it found this is an I. But the I, it doesn't go anywhere, and this E doesn't leave. It actually goes. Psh. So this is now on their calendar, meaning the quality of that day went up.
Yeah, that makes more sense. Value.
Yeah, I'm looking at just the direct output of missing this because we couldn't differentiate between the different types. That directly impacts the quality of what's happening that day.
That makes absolute sense. So if somebody's calling, inquiring about some bullshit,
You don't want to spend
how
time
much?
on that.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
exactly.
So the business cannot tell which type of call it is until it's answered. That's why missed calls are dangerous. As the day goes on, the problem compounds. Technicians are busy. The front office is juggling calls. After hours, the problem gets worse. So we know that because people are not there. Businesses rely on voicemail or answering services. Emergencies can't wait in the morning. So we know all this stuff. 24/7 is expensive. So this is a selling point, right? I'm just gonna note this down right here. I'm gonna say this is a selling point. And when you're writing things down as you're doing research, like you guys can see, I'm reading this, and at the same time, I'm kind of reading it with a filter because I'm looking for a few things. The things that I'm looking for, right? I'm looking for
Hmm.
selling points. These are things that are gonna say, you know what, hey, you guys are now missing calls because people go home at 4 p.m. Well, guess what? Now this thing is 24/7. That's a selling point. Pain point. Well, you guys are missing calls because somebody's stuck on the line and another call comes in. Well, guess what? Now you don't have to miss calls because AI can pick up infinite calls. It's a pain point. Constraint. You can pick up unlimited calls during the day because you only have two people working. Well, guess what? Now you're just gonna feel like you have 10 people working. It's a constraint we're removing. These three lead to ROI or immediate value. So hey, because we are solving for this pain point and we're removing this constraint, you are now going to be able to see more calls taken, meaning more business goes into
More
your
fixed cost.
business, which is the return on your investment with us. How your output becomes better? Well, guess what? All of the information that you would have to answer somebody, not all of it is stuck in the brain of somebody. you can basically put some of that information into an AI and handle the repetitive tasks, meaning the amount of time that's spent on calls that are less critical becomes significantly less, which is how your output is going to be better. At the same time, that's going to boost that time to go on something that is more critical, which is, again, another output. So this is what I'm looking for as I'm reading what I'm reading and as I'm brainstorming and as I'm researching. Selling points, pain points, constraints, ROI, and how their output is going to be better. And I want to frame this in their specific language. That's what I'm trying to do here. All right, let's keep diving.
So all
Why
of
they're
this is just research that anybody who is trying to set up their system is that this is literally what they would have to go over and understand before they set any of this stuff up. That way they have an idea of what they're going into, what needs to be tackled, and what they're essentially going to be selling, right? Like right
more
here.
importantly, why too? You know what I mean? Because right, like we didn't, none of this existed before we started recording today. I literally started in the beginning. I created this big system prompt, and I was like, hey, I want to, you know what? I think I want to dive into voice AI. I want to know who wants voice AI. What kind of people need to be in the room before I knock on the room, right? That's basically what I'm asking it. And then it went back and forth with me. It was like, okay, well, answer these questions first, and then I'm gonna try to narrow it down. We answered these questions as part of the brainstorming, and it was like, okay, I think 1, 2, and 3 would be applicable. From there, we picked the home service and we picked the auto for, you know, I mean, literally just because we wanted two different ones, and now we're exploring each of them. So what we did right now is we picked two different rooms essentially, and we're jumping into the room and we're trying to we're like interviewing the people in that room, but they're not the actual people that we're going to be talking to. We're basically interviewing like a mock group. We're saying, okay, what's going on in this room? Why do you want the white shirt? Okay. Well, the first person is going to come back and is going to say, well, I have an event coming up and everybody has to be dressed white in that event. And, you know what I mean? I need to have a white shirt. And then I go to the next person and I'm like, well, why do you need a white shirt? It's like, you know what? I love the color white ever since I was little. Every person in that room has their own reason for why they want a white shirt. What are we doing right now is we're basically looking at all these different reasons and we're compiling them in one place so that way when we go to the real room, we know these things ahead of time. So we were sitting in front of them, you know what? Look, hey man, we know you have an event tomorrow and everybody has to wear white. And, you know, we're looking around right now. Nobody has white shirts. Well, guess what? Here's a white shirt that we have that you can buy. Here's why you should buy it. In that little building analogy that I explained to you guys earlier, that's pretty much what we're doing right now. Is we're finding out the why these people want the thing that we're doing by studying their literal work, their process, what goes on in their day to day, what makes them tick, what makes them not tick, how their life becomes easier with AI or with automation, or just, you know what I mean, in general, what makes their day flow better. That's our target. What makes their day flow better? Okay, we don't need to know why their process exists. That's the impact and criticality to walk you through their day to day and an example. And we're literally just trying to get visibility into what that day even looks like. All right, I don't really like this simulation. It's not really what I'm looking for. Be able to sound like I know the ins and outs. So I just said, okay, I want to be able to sound like I know the ins and outs of that business in a way that somebody would know, if as if they worked in it previously. What points would I focus on, understanding and bringing up and relating in relation to call handling? To them, calls are not inbound leads. Calls are interruptions with upside. Okay, that's a good way to look at it because most people are thinking of calls as, oh, this is another customer, whereas these people already have an existing schedule that's out there right now that they have to stick to. Any call that comes in disrupts that schedule and throws it upside, which could essentially have a bad or a good impact depending on the kind of call that's happening, right? Because you got to think about it. If the technicians are also the people that are handling the calls, um, taking those 5 to 10 minutes to talk to that person on the phone moves that schedule. So this is an
Yeah.
interruption with a bad upside. Whereas taking in a call, then they're like, you know what? Hey, I have a job for you today that costs $600. Can you make it at 6 p.m.? They look at their schedule and they're like, well, 6 p.m. I don't have nothing going on. Now they just made an extra $600 that day. So
Mhm.
again, looking at it as an interruption versus a lead, Very good distinction right here. Copy this and throw it. Again, this is just where we're brain dumping the things we care about that we find, so that way we can come back to it later and we're like, okay, this is where our train of thought went at the time as we're reading it. Here's how we're going to be able to pull value from this information that we stored. So I'm just going to throw that here. So every time it rings, pulling attention from somewhere that something already matters. It's about timing. Okay, they care less about total number, more about which calls they miss. So look, this ties to this little concept that we talked about right here, which is clearing confusion between call types. They care less, or they care less about the total number of call, but more about which kind of calls. So this tells me that I'm gonna change priorities to understanding the call type and how much attention to give to it. Actually, how much time to give to it and doing the work that makes the money. The call type showed up a few times. Let's just revisit these notes and see if we can make any changes. How many jobs per day, the number of technicians. I'm going to say related to call type. Distinguishing, answering the phone quickly, understanding call type and how much time to give to and doing the work that works and money. Call types, inquisitive, schedule based, emergencies. Clearing the confusion between the call types has a direct impact to their schedule job quality, meaning they care less about the total number of calls, more about what kind of calls are being missed or they're happening. Our selling points now we have staffing 24/7 is expensive and reliable. Another selling point here, call types are the word actually call types are triaged. And by the way, just to show you guys what triage mean, because we're going to be using this word. So the word by definition means the preliminary assessment of actually wait. Triage means the systemic process of categorizing, prioritizing, and assigning incoming support requests to the most critical issues addressed first. That is the technical term for the word triage. And I know this because every single business that has a service desk, customer support, some sort of front line, anybody who is dealing with the external world before whatever is happening, flows through the business, needs to have this as a skill, the triage. So we're gonna say, okay, we need to are triaged by the AI system, right? Call types are triaged by the AI system. And so we have now two selling points. That's the first one, 24/7, and the call type triaging. And obviously, no calls. I was going to throw that in there because it feels like it's an obvious one we should have.
Could you say more booked jobs?
Where?
Because think about, I don't know, you could put it in a selling point, you know what I mean? More because we're saving them calls, right? If you look at like a monthly percentage of what they're missing out on, like in the plumbing industry, I'm pretty sure they're missing 60% of their inbound calls. You would be able to put out more booked jobs with the AI voice system, right? If it's running,
Um,
if it's constantly running 24/7, they're probably going to get more booked jobs from it.
if it's constantly running 24/7, they're 100% going to get more work jobs.
Yeah.
You caught that off the fly. I feel like, no, yeah, 100%. 100%. More book jobs, call types being triaged, humans being expensive and unreliable, staffing can be 24/7, no missed calls. So far, that's what we picked up. Be careless about the total number of calls, more about which calls they miss. So an owner will happily ignore 10 low value calls if they catch one emergency job. Problem is they can't tell which one is which until the call is answered. So very important point here. If you want to get attention, you immediately sound like an insider. Articulate that. I'm literally just gonna copy this. I like this a lot. Articulating this tension makes it seem like we know more about what's happening because we know that, hey, you're not just caring about any kind of call. I know you want to only pick and choose the right ones. You want to cherry pick them. We know that. So our AI is going to be able to cherry pick that for you. Let's look. And I don't know. Okay, just going to throw that here. I'm going to leave a specific section and just call it. We're just going to throw a bunch of random things that we like in here so we can come back to it later. Because what we're doing right now is we're just kind of throwing everything in one place. We're gonna come back and take it just like a holistic bird's eye view look at everything that we put together here, and then
Then you
kind of
just
make
go
more
down.
decisions. Yeah.
Yeah.
And by the way, this is something you would do no matter what you're doing. No matter if you're
Yeah, no
building
matter what.
AI, no matter if you're selling AI, no matter if you're selling a physical product or you're trying to build a physical product, this process right here, it's basically giving you an initiative that you can focus on, and it's giving you a purpose of why and how you should be doing things, because now your decision making is not based off of, oh, I feel like this. No, you're like you're leading with more of a narrowed scope, which is, I mean, it just makes your life easier down the line. Peak call windows, and that's morning, late afternoon, and after hours. Again, we're loading up on that ammunition here. Why did it do it this way? I don't like that. Call collisions, so multiple calls at once. Putting somebody on hold after hours. Calls don't end when the call ends. Call creates follow-up work. Scheduling confirmation. Okay, so this is a very good point right here, Miles. We're actually going to be building a system that handles this. So what this is saying is calls don't end when the call ends, because when the call ends, we have follow-up work, we have scheduling, we have confirmations, we have reminders, rescheduling, and notes. So if this to me, this screams AI and screams automation. And by the way, this is a system that is not voice AI. But because business operations rely heavily on this kind of work, you can tie it into the voice AI, and now all of a sudden your voice AI system kind of has superpowers where it can automate the follow up, the scheduling, the confirmations, reminders, the rescheduling, the notes, pretty much everything that happens outside of a real life call. You can automate with a system. We're gonna dive into this more later, actually. So what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna copy it. Us knowing more about this tells me more about what kind of AI automation we can build around this. So,
100%.
you know what I mean? This is a backbone to the voice system. It's more
Yeah,
of like a back end infrastructure system. This is most of the time this is done by
that's
somebody.
big. Yeah, that's big.
We're not trying to figure out how to sell so far. We're trying to pinpoint the parts that we need to talk about and basically research and understand that the fact that they matter to them in the first place is what we want to know. What matters to them in the first place? That's all I care about right now. I don't care about how to portray that to them. Is basically what this is talking about. But I care about what these things actually are. All right, we're pretty much done here. Let's just see. Notes. I'm going to put notes right here. All right, so here's what we got so far. We went through and answered a bunch of questions. And we said we want to focus on voice AI. And it was like, hey, here's the two, bigger industries that you can focus on. It gave us home services and it gave us auto and mobility. And so what we did is we chose to just take a quick little deep dive and understand more about what makes this tick, right? What is somebody in HVAC, plumbing, whatever, like all these different industries that are inside of home services, what matters to them. We pulled some constraints that relate to them, which is how many jobs they have per day. That's an active constraint because they're limited by it, and they're limited by the number of technicians that are doing these jobs. Something that's important in this industry is the types of jobs that the techs go to, meaning the time that they have to allocate during that day for the kind of job, which relates to distinguishing the call type that are coming in, meaning their priorities are going to have to be around answering quickly, understanding that call type, which helps it, it relates to the distinguishing of the call type, and knowing how much time to give to that call basically leads to you, not breaking that schedule that you already have, which affects how many jobs are done per day. Call types, you have inquisitive calls, which is information that's out in the open, could be found on their website, could be researched. Hey, what's your location? Do you service this area? Blah, blah, blah. You have schedule based, meaning somebody that's a human needs to have access to a live schedule to answer that. And then you have emergencies, which is basically their number one. We found out that clearing confusion between call types has a direct impact to the schedule's job quality for the day. The reason why, which we broke down earlier, was basically because if you have a call type that is not as critical and you spend time on that one, you could potentially miss a call type which is more critical that could have been on that schedule, leading to a direct impact to the schedule's job quality for the day, meaning they don't care much about the total number of calls. They care about filtering those calls and knowing which ones they should put more of their time and attention to. So we found that out through this. Meaning, so this leads to our selling points, which are going to be, hey, no missed calls. You have 24/7 staffing. And because you have 24/7 staffing, we can also compare that to the fact that if you wanted to hire somebody 24/7, that's more expensive, it's more unreliable. And you can say that call types can be triaged, which is categorized and prioritized based on how important they are by the AI system. And all in all, that leads to more booked jobs. And when we were trying to do our entire research right now, we focused mainly on understanding those selling points. What are these selling points? Why do they matter? And we understand the pain points. This is basically what makes their, what grinds their gears, right? Why does a business care so much about solving this problem? Just understanding what these things are. And then constraints. This is their limitations. What are they limited by, either physically or systematically inside of their business? And then we focused on finding out what's their return on investment. If they spend money with us, what do they get in return? What is that immediate value? And then how do we make their existing output better? That's what we looked for when we were doing this research. And now we took some notes specific to that industry, saying, okay, here's how home services really operate. They don't look at each call as a lead, they look at it as a disruption. This is a mindset shift. You want to make sure that when you're talking to somebody and you understand this about their industry, you are, showing them that you understand, hey, these calls, you're not worried about picking up more calls. That's not what you care about, mister. And I know that because I know that your schedule is already usually set, meaning the calls that come in are disrupting what's already in place. Because we understand this, here's how we approach solving these issues for you. So this is the first distinguishing. And then we just kind of wrote that down here. We're saying that the owner will ignore low value calls if they catch higher quality emergency jobs. The problem is that they can't tell which is which until the call is answered. That ties us back to the things that we wrote here. Call types and understanding the quality of the calls and just triaging between them. And then we have some more notes just about their regular peak call windows. When are they getting the most calls? They're getting the most in the morning at the first of the day, probably like 8 a.m., 9 a.m. And then you got late afternoon, most likely 2, 3 p.m. And then you have after hours whenever they close. And problems that happen during these peak call windows are call collisions. There's a lot of calls that are coming in, meaning if somebody's on the line and the line's tied up, nobody's able to pick up that second call. And if there is somebody trying to pick up that second call, well, guess what? They're going to have to put the first person on hold. And if that person hangs up, he's like, well, what the hell? I don't want to be on hold. He's going to find somebody else. And then there's that after hour nervousness. There's nobody available after hours. So, you're always going to be shaky about missing those kind of calls. And we understand also that the job doesn't end when the call ends. There's usually a lot of things that have to happen outside of the call that involve manual scheduling, confirmations, follow ups, rescheduling, note taking, all of this stuff, which is usually handled by a person. Which, if we were to take care of this through an AI system, ultimately, all of this, what we just uncovered in this session right now, is like our bread and butter for what we need to know about home service based businesses and AI and voice systems, right? We understood their pain points, why they care about what they care about, what they do in their day, how they do what they do. And we're just basically right now trying to frame ourselves to make a decision. So, this exact process of what we just did, brainstorm it, dumped it all into one. And literally, as I'm reading this, I just kind of blurted all of this in real time. But that's how I tied everything that I just tied together. And you guys can see, like, there's no structure to this. This is just me looking at this and picking up information as I do it. So no matter which industry you're doing this with, the kind of brainstorming that we went back and forth with ChatGPT, and you guys can see all I did was read what it came out with. If I didn't like it, I re-prompted it in a different way. But I was just note taking as I read. And when I'm note taking, the big things that were in the back of my mind were these things right here. So selling points, pain points, constraints, ROI, and how their output is better. Every single sentence I read was with this in mind. And so why is because this is drivers for the conversation and also for framing our package, which we're going to be framing later when we're creating our actual systems. And yeah, that was just pretty much the brainstorming process for home-based services. Done.